My name is Jessica, and I want to share my story. 10 years ago, I married John. My family and friends convinced me that he was the perfect partner. They said he was reliable and caring, but my heart always belonged to another man, my literature teacher David. Even after all these years, I can't forget the look of him in an elegant suit and glasses that accentuated his penetrating eyes. The family insisted on marrying John, considering him an ideal match. Tall, athletic, with brown hair and an open smile, John gave the impression of a reliable man. However, no matter how attractive he looks, David has always been in my heart. When I first saw David, I was 18 years old, and I had just started my studies at the university. He taught literature, and at first glance he caught my attention. David was of medium height, with a toned figure, his blonde hair was always neatly styled, and his blue eyes, hidden behind thin-rimmed glasses, radiated intelligence and insight. He wore immaculately tailored suits, most of them gray, which gave him the look of a real gentleman. Each of his classes was a celebration for me. I tried to sit closer to the first desk so as not to miss a word. David often noticed my efforts and praised me for my diligence. "Jessica," he said one day when I stayed after class to ask a question about homework, "your essays are always so carefully thought out and in depth. I see how much you put into each job." "Thank you, Professor," I replied, feeling my heart skip a beat at his compliment. "I really like your subject, and I want to write as well as you teach." "You're already on the right track," he smiled, his eyes glittering behind his glasses. "If you want, you can join our extracurricular literature club. I think you'll be interested." However, my feelings for David remained unspoken. I knew he was older, and I was afraid to even imagine what he might think of my sympathy. Instead, I focused on my studies and tried to forget about him. But my family had their own plans. They insisted that I marry John, our neighbor and family friend. At dinner in the evening, my mother did not miss the opportunity to remind me of this. "Jessica," she began, looking lovingly at me across the table, "John cares so much about you. You know he's been in love with you for a long time. He's going to be a great husband." "Mom, I'm not sure I'm ready to get married," I replied, looking down. "That's natural," my father chimed in. "But John is a reliable guy. You can see for yourself how hard he's trying for you. You'll be happy with him." I nodded silently, but inside I felt different. Every time I closed my eyes, an image of David appeared in front of me. His smile, his voice, his soft but confident gaze. All this haunted me. Eventually, under pressure from family and friends, I agreed to marry John. Our friends organized an engagement, and soon the preparations for the wedding began. John was happy and constantly took care of me, but I felt more and more trapped in a cage of my own decisions. On the wedding day, I stood in front of the mirror in a white dress, looked at my reflection and thought that this should be a happy day. But instead of joy, I felt empty. David's voice echoed in my head, "You're already on the right track." My best friend, Sarah, came into the room. Her red hair was curled into curls, and her green eyes looked at me with sympathy. "Jessica," she said softly, coming up to me, "you look beautiful. Are you ready?" "Yes," I replied, although everything inside screamed no. Sarah took my hand and led me down the aisle. John stood there, smiling and confident, in a navy suit that accentuated his strong shoulders. The ceremony was a blur, and when we said the vows, I thought about how I would live with this choice. That's how my life with John began, and I vowed to forget about David. But even 10 years later, when I was sitting alone in our house, I couldn't get rid of the memories of someone I really loved. It's been many years since I graduated from university and married John. Despite the assurances of my family and friends that he would be the perfect husband, our marriage did not bring me happiness. Life turned into a monotonous routine, and I increasingly felt trapped by my own decisions. Every morning started the same way. I woke up early, made breakfast, and tried to do everything to please John. But despite all my efforts, our relationship became increasingly strained. "Jessica, where are my clean shirts?" John asked irritably one morning, opening the closet. "They're in the laundry," I replied, trying not to show annoyance. "I'll wash them tonight." "You always forget something," he muttered, buttoning his shirt. "No wonder my friends ask how I live with you at all." I didn't say anything, even though I was seething inside from his words. John was a tall, athletic man with brown hair and always a neat haircut, but his physical attractiveness did not compensate for the way he treated me. We had dinner planned with his friends in the evening. John insisted that I look perfect so as not to lose face in front of them. "Put on something decent," he said, looking me up and down. "You have to make an impression." I chose my best dress, put on my earrings, and did my makeup. We arrived at the restaurant, where his friends Tom and Lisa were already waiting. Tom was a tall brunette with a bright smile, and Lisa was a slender blonde with perfect posture. "Hi, Jessica," Lisa greeted me with a tight smile. "You look great." "Thank you, Lisa," I replied, trying to be polite. The evening passed slowly. John and Tom discussed work, sports, and politics, and Lisa tried to make small talk with me, but I felt superfluous. "So, Jessica, what are you doing now?" Lisa asked, her green eyes looking at me intently. "I do housework and sometimes write articles for a local magazine," I replied, feeling the words stick in my throat. "How interesting," she replied, although her voice sounded unconvincing. When I returned home, I felt the weight of today pressing down on my shoulders. John was sitting on the couch watching TV. "John," I began, trying to start a conversation, "I feel like our relationship has become too strained. We hardly talk to each other." "What are you talking about?" Without taking his eyes off the screen, he replied, "Everything is fine with us. You're just thinking too much." "No, Joan," I said, fighting back tears. "It seems to me that we are moving away from each other. We're not the same people we used to be." He turned off the TV and stood up, looking at me with a cold expression on his face. "If you think so, maybe you should find a hobby or a job to distract yourself," he offered indifferently. "I want us to work on our relationship," I said, hoping for understanding. "I need more attention and support from you. I have a lot of work to do, Jessica," he replied, turning to the bedroom door. "Maybe you just don't understand how difficult it is for me." That night, I lay in bed for a long time, listening to John sleeping peacefully next to me. A feeling of loneliness and disappointment filled my soul. I thought about David and how he always understood and supported me. Our conversations, his sincere compliments, it all seemed so far away and unattainable. The next day, I decided to call my friend Sarah. She was always a support for me and understood what I was going through. "Hi, Sarah," I said when she answered. "I need to talk to you." "Of course, Jessica," she replied, her voice sounding caring. "What happened?" "I feel so alone in this marriage," I began, trying to hold back the tears. "John is constantly criticizing me, and it seems to me that he doesn't care about my feelings." "It's terrible, Jessica," she replied, and I could feel her sincere sympathy. "You deserve better. Maybe you should think about what you really need to be happy." This conversation made me think about what I really want from life. Since then, I started looking for ways to change my situation and find my true happiness, even if it meant radical changes in my life. My marriage to John has become a source of pain and disappointment. As time went on, I came to terms with the fact that life is not always what we imagine. However, one day something unexpected happened that turned my life around again. One evening, when I was sitting at home alone, a new message beeped in my phone. It was an unfamiliar number, and I didn't think much of it at first. However, the subsequent audio message made me freeze. "Hi Jessica, this is David. Do you remember me? I'm back in town and I'd like to meet you, if you don't mind. Let's have coffee and talk. Let me know when it's convenient for you." My heart skipped a beat. David. His voice instantly took me back to the past, to a time when I was younger and dreamed of the impossible. I couldn't believe that after all these years he had reappeared in my life. I quickly replied that I was free the next day, and despite the things I had planned, I decided that meeting David was the most important thing. The next morning, I spent a long time choosing what to wear, trying to look my best. Finally, I settled on a light dress that emphasized my figure and carefully made up. When I was ready, John came into the room and looked at me in surprise. "Are you going somewhere? What is it?" he asked with the usual boredom in his voice. "Yes, I'm dating a friend," I lied, not wanting to explain everything to him. "I hope you have fun," he said, turning his attention back to the phone. I arrived at the cafe, the address of which was given by David. It was a cozy place in a prestigious area of the city. When I walked in, my heart was pounding so hard that I could barely breathe, and then I saw him. He was sitting by the window, already enjoying a cup of coffee. David still looked attractive, but his hair had turned a little gray, giving him even more wisdom and charm. "Jessica," he said as I approached, his eyes shining with joy. "You look great." "Thank you, David," I replied, sitting down across from him. "You look good too. How are you doing?" "What is it?" he asked, taking a sip of coffee. "It's been so long." "Yes, indeed." I tried to hide my nervousness. "I'm fine. I work, I live. And how are you?" "I moved back to the city," he replied, his gaze warm and sincere. "I work in a publishing house. You know, Jessica, I often thought about our conversations at the university. You were one of the most talented and inspired students. We talked for a long time about the past, about our lives after university, but at some point David suddenly changed the subject. "Jessica," he began, his voice becoming more serious, "there's one thing I want to tell you. Back then, at university, I was married, and that prevented me from confessing my feelings for you. But now my life has changed. I got divorced a few years ago." I froze, not knowing how to react. My heart was beating faster than ever. "David," I said softly, "I've never forgotten you. You've always been in my thoughts." He took my hand, and his touch was as warm as I remembered. "I'm glad we met again," he said, his eyes looking straight into mine. "Maybe this is a chance to start all over again." That evening we walked around the city for a long time, talking about everything in the world. I felt alive again, as if all those years of suffering and disappointment had disappeared. When I returned home, I knew that I had to make a difficult choice. "Jessica," John asked when I walked in, "how was your evening?" "Everything was fine," I replied, trying to hide my emotions. But deep down, I knew I couldn't live in this marriage anymore. The next day I met David again. We were sitting in his cozy apartment, and he took my hand again. "I want to be with you, Jessica," he said. "You deserve to be happy." "I want to be with you too, David," I replied, feeling tears running down my cheeks. "But I need time to sort it out. I'll wait as long as it takes." His words were filled with sincerity and hope. It's been a few weeks since I started dating David. We spent more and more time together, enjoying each other's company and every moment that life gave us. However, despite the fact that I filed for divorce from John, we were still officially married. It cast a shadow over my relationship with David, but it couldn't overshadow the feelings we had for each other. One evening, when John was on a business trip, David came to my house. It was a risky move, but we couldn't wait any longer. "Hi, Jessica," he said, entering the house and closing the door behind him. "I'm so glad to see you." "Hi, David," I replied, feeling my heart begin to beat faster. "Come on in, it feels like home." David was wearing dark jeans and a light sweater that accentuated his athletic figure. His blue eyes shone with warmth and tenderness, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. We had dinner in the kitchen, trying to create a cozy atmosphere. Candles were burning on the table, and the aroma of freshly cooked dishes was in the air. We talked about our dreams and plans for the future, laughing and enjoying each other's company. "Jessica, you are an incredible woman," David said, leaning closer to me. "I am grateful that we have met again." "Me too, David," I replied, feeling his words sink into my heart. "You gave me hope and strength to continue living." He took my hand and kissed it gently. I felt a shiver run through my body. His touch was so warm and gentle that I couldn't resist. After dinner, we moved into the living room. David sat down next to me on the couch, and I felt his arm wrap around my waist. We sat in silence, enjoying each other's closeness. "Jessica," he whispered, looking into my eyes, "I want you more than anything in the world." "Me too, David," I replied, feeling my desires overwhelm me, "but we have to be careful." "I know," he said, coming even closer to me, "but I can't wait any longer." His lips touched mine, and I felt a wave of pleasure run through my body. We kissed, forgetting about everything in the world, enjoying every moment. His arms wrapped around me tenderly, exploring every curve of my body. We moved into the bedroom, where passion overwhelmed both of us. David slowly took off my clothes, and I felt his hands gently touching my skin. His touch was so soft and affectionate that I couldn't hold back the moans of pleasure. "You're so beautiful, Jessica," he whispered, looking at me with admiration. "I can't believe you're mine." "I'm yours, David," I replied, feeling his words penetrate to the very depths of my soul. "You've made me the happiest woman in the world." He kissed me gently, and I felt his love and passion penetrate every cell of my body. We merged into one, enjoying every moment together. His movements were confident and smooth, and I felt like we were becoming one. After our passionate night, we lay in each other's arms, enjoying the silence and intimacy. David gently stroked my hair, and I felt like the happiest woman in the world. "Jessica," he said, looking at me lovingly, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I'm ready to wait as long as it takes to be with you." "Me too, David," I replied, smiling. "We will overcome all difficulties together." We lay side by side, enjoying every second we spent together. I knew that there were many challenges ahead of us, but I was sure that together we would cope with everything. Our feelings were stronger than all obstacles, and I was ready to fight for our love, no matter how forbidden it might seem. It's been a few months since I filed for divorce from John. This period was difficult and full of emotional turmoil, but David was always there for me, supporting and inspiring me. He became my anchor in the storm, and I knew that a new beginning was ahead of us. The official divorce papers were finally signed, and I felt relieved, as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. It's time to move on and start a new life with a clean slate. "Jessica," David said one evening when we were sitting at my house discussing the future, "I think we should move to another city, to start all over again, away from all these memories." "You're right, David," I replied, looking into his loving eyes. "But where are we going?" "I have a suggestion," he said, his face lighting up with a smile. "What about San Francisco? I have old friends there, and I'm sure I can find a good job there." "San Francisco sounds great," I replied, feeling a spark of hope light up in my soul. "Let's try it." We started preparing for the move by packing up and selling off old furniture. Saying goodbye to the house I had lived in for so many years was not easy, but I knew it was a necessary step towards a new future. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" David asked as he helped me pack the last boxes. "Yes, David," I replied, smiling at him. "I'm ready for a new beginning. I'm ready for anything with you." He came up to me and hugged me, and I felt his warmth and love penetrate my heart. "We can do this, Jessica," he whispered. "I believe in us." Moving to San Francisco was full of new experiences and emotions. The city greeted us with its beauty and dynamism. We rented a cozy apartment in the center, and I began to get used to the new rhythm of life. "This place is amazing," I said one day when we were walking along the Golden Bridge, enjoying the view of the bay. "Yes, there are many possibilities here," David agreed, "and most importantly, here we can start all over again." David found a job at a large publishing house, and I got a job at a small advertising agency where I could realize my creative abilities. I enjoyed my job, and I felt like I was finally in my place. "Jessica, you're doing great," my new boss praised me at one of the meetings. "Your ideas are fresh and original. I'm glad you're with us." "Thank you," I replied, feeling proud and confident. My relationship with David was getting stronger. We enjoyed every moment we spent together, whether it was a walk around the city, dinner at a restaurant, or just an evening spent at home, watching a movie. "Jessica," David said one evening as we sat on the balcony of our apartment and watched the sunset, "I want to spend my whole life with you. Do you agree to become my wife?" His offer was unexpected, but so long awaited. I felt tears of joy running down my cheeks. "Yes, David," I replied, hugging him. "I want to be with you forever." Our new beginning in San Francisco was filled with love, joy, and new opportunities. We built our lives step by step, overcoming difficulties and enjoying every moment together. "We can handle everything that lies ahead," David said, holding my hand, "because we have each other." "Yes," I agreed, feeling happiness fill my heart. Our new path is just beginning. We watched the sunset, knowing that a bright future full of love and hope awaits us. Together we could cope with everything that life had in store for us.